with what the General Assembly has said or what the International Court of Justice has said. So this is a big deal. Now, it also shows that this rules-based international system has fallen completely apart. To their credit, South Africa, China, Russia, most countries in this world still place considerable store by the old system of international relations and law, the UN, and the UN, of course, has these bodies that are finally acting in a way consonant with international law. So Israel is a pariah now today at this point, as it has never been before. They will not relent, but the reactions from law-abiding and respecters of international law can be very significant.
I received an email from a person that I admire and trust with deep roots in the military and intelligence community around the world. And that person received an email from another person in the intelligence community that I'm going to read. It's not that long. I am following every day a wide spectrum of Israeli right-wing media outlets. I do it for a few reasons. One, they are consistent. Two, they are the rulers of the Jewish cosmos, hence more relevant. Three, they aren't shy about their plans for the region and the rest of the world. Today, I listened to an extensive interview with an IDF ex-intelligence officer. His position was clear. We are, he said, aiming towards a world war. Israel, therefore, shouldn't stop itself from implementing some of the most radical measures because its actions will be measured retroactively in the context of the brutal world conflict to come. Then he expresses his opinion, the author of this piece. That type of thought is, of course, as rational and consistent as it is barbarian and disgusting. It actually unveils where Netanyahu and company are leading us and explains the treacherous role of Biden in facilitating this unfolding disaster. Does this make sense to you, Larry Johnson?
Yes, it does. We've entered the world of religious zealotry. I'm not talking about people who are observant Christians, Jews, or Muslims. I'm talking about the zealots who take the religious principles in those various religions and take them to an extreme where in that extreme there is no compromise with anyone or anything. It is their way is the only correct way. And a project I've got on my desk to do, I haven't done it yet, is to lay out and do the comparison of the end of times beliefs of Christians, and they get divided between the Catholics and the evangelicals, between the Jews on the ultra Orthodox, and between the Muslims, because they each have three different views of how the world ends. And my point is, can't all be right, and yet each of them pursuing that, they're willing to set the world on fire to achieve what they believe is, in the Christian case, the return of Jesus, in the Jewish case, the return of the Messiah, and in the Muslim case, it's the return of both the prophet and the Messiah. So, I mean, you've got different scenarios here. But yeah, it is, once we enter that world of zealotry, we're past reason and into pure emotion.
Ray, Alistair Crook says that there are actually two Israels. One is the liberal economic powerhouse, pro-personal liberty, acceptance of gay rights, sort of live and let live. And the other is a theocracy. And the theocracy now controls the government. And the theocracy wants this war to go on and on and on. Do you agree?
Of course, I always agree with Alistair, but I would add that the theocracy is really partly a disguise for pure racism, for pure willingness to do away with a whole race or with a whole people. Like genocide is the word, right? Now you have Netanyahu, for example, quoting Hebrew scriptures, Amalek. Okay, what happened there? The the Jewish rulers were not fierce enough. They let some of the women and babies escape being killed. And so lately, Netanyahu, who I doubt is a fervent observer, has been playing on that and said the real danger here is to let any of them live. Okay, that was what Yahweh said was really bad. So they play on this stuff. And, there may be a liberal voice within Israel. I'm sure Alistair knows what he's talking about. But if you're talking 80-20, it's the 80 that's in power. And, this is not going to come to a good end for Israel, because the whole world has made Israel now a pariah. And will they stop? There's no indication that they'll stop. And they have nuclear weapons, of course. So this is a real imbroglio, and Joe Biden can stop it with a telephone call, and he won't do it.
Larry, some of the members of the Prime Minister's War Cabinet have referred to what Israel is doing in Gaza as mowing the grass or mowing the lawn, slaughtering everybody and destroying everything. Do you think that Bibi Netanyahu believes that, or do you think he says it just to keep his coalition together, or doesn't it matter whether he believes it because he's doing it?
Well, I think he absolutely believes it. He's sort of the, let's call him the 21st century version of John Chivington. Remember, he was a Methodist pastor, and he was also in the U.S. Army. And when it came to slaughtering Native Americans, he said, nits make lice. That's why he's willing to kill children and women. So here we have a modern 21st century version of Chivington, except, Netanyahu's not a Methodist minister like Chivington was.
Well, let's transition, Larry, to your piece this morning. You have argued persuasively in that piece, which is on your website, Sonar 21. No matter what the U.S. does to arm Ukraine, there is no path to victory. Why do you say that?
On every measure that you can take with respect to military capabilities of Ukraine, they are at a complete and irreversible disadvantage. There's no amount of weaponry the United States can send. And what we're talking about, and one of the points I raised in my piece, is you've got so many people in the Biden administration that are talking about inflicting violence on Russia. And yet I bet not a one of them have ever actually been in a physical fight where they've actually had to hit somebody. And so we got different levels of violence, and you got to figure out what the violence is being used for. If you go out and light off a bunch of fireworks, that's violent, but that's, you can observe it, nothing happens. Or if you go kill a bunch of civilians, let's say you line up ATACMS and you launch ATACMS into Russia, you kill a bunch of civilians, it does not change a thing in terms of Russia's ability as a military to deliver force and to attack assets in Ukraine. And it's like, you can punch the wall, you're going to hurt yourself and maybe put a dent in the wall. You can sucker punch somebody when they don't expect it. Or if you're actually in a self-defense situation, you can use a punch to take the person down. And that's the point. You use violence to achieve a particular objective. And this is what the U.S. Congress is not asking. And frankly, it's not even what the Ukrainians are asking. They want to use violence against the Russians, but just to use violence against the Russians because we hate the Russians. Well, that's idiotic. They're not using the violence in a way like what Russia's doing. Yeah, they're bombing thermal power plants and hydroelectric power plants and coal-fired power plants. They're destroying electrical infrastructure because their objective is to turn the lights out in Ukraine. That's one use of military force. You use military force to take out fixed-wing aircraft. You use military force to destroy tanks. You use it to disrupt their lines of communication, ability to resupply. All of that carries a purpose. What Ukraine and the U.S. Congress are talking about now is how do we give them more weapons that they can just go hurt Russia with? But it doesn't hurt Russia in terms of its ability to prosecute the war.
Chris, just to raise the blood pressure of my dear two friends here, can you play those two clips of Mrs. Newland? I think they're numbers 5 and 6.
They need to be able to stop these Russian